Amazon's Prime Day has become their summer sale event that attracts millions of consumers and in recent years has also led competitor retailers to develop overlapping promotional events. While the promotions in the near term help boost sales, your Prime Day and other sale events also offer indicators into how retailers and consumers will behave as attention turns to the all important fourth quarter. Welcome to Store Brand Spotlight. I'm Greg Sleater, Executive Editor of Store Brands. Joining us today is Catherine Frame, Retail Industry Director at UiPath, best known for its intelligent document processing. Catherine will discuss how retailers can use technology such as AI to identify trends and use that knowledge to make adjustments heading into Q4. Catherine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Greg. It's lovely to be here.
It's good to have you as well. So we just finished up Prime Day and all the other sale events that we see here in the U.S., kind of competing with Prime Day, and numbers seemed to be pretty good, although some reports with Prime Day seemed to be that people were shifting how they were shopping.
So Prime Day forces the exact behavior retailers will see in Q4, or the golden quarter, as we like to call it. It's fast-paced, it's time-sensitive, there's big demand spikes, but arguably at lower stakes. So the retailers that take notice of this, they're in a live pressure test of how they can operate. So not just from kind of a sales point of view, but also from their systems, their teams, their execution. So they've basically got a dry run. After that, they have the opportunity to make changes, take stock of what happens, and really use that to forward thinking into their actions of Q4.
Catherine, what were the purchasing patterns seen during Prime Day and some of the other sale events held by the likes of Walmart and Target?
So we saw them run comparative events. So from Target, they did the Circle Day deals. Walmart's did their own overlapping event. So now there's almost an expectation that this competing mentality is the norm. The Prime Day itself is the amplification point, but the retailers can also piggyback on that. It's seen as a window where there's going to be high traffic, high purchasing, and those who come to the table with a similar offering are more likely to get the traction thereafter. We saw an increase in comparative shopping, so using things like price comparison sites for consumers to get the best deal. So what this shows is that there's definitely price sensitivity in the market. Purchasers are less likely to go for the big bang purchase, but instead they're going for more the kind of repeat purchase at a better rate. So it really allowed others to come to the table and show their offering as well. And it wasn't just about that single one-off deal. It was more kind of about a sustained purchase from the consumer.
Did the results give you insight into the overall macroeconomic health of consumers as we head into the fourth quarter?
I think it's very much showing that purchasers are more selective now. So confidence in this kind of big bang or the amount of disposable income to purchase is definitely not what it used to be. So instead of going after that key purchase, it was very much around how do they make more efficiencies in their day-to-day. So more of a conscious purchase. So how do they make efficiencies? How do they make sure that they're kind of staying within their budget? So it's really interesting to see that off the back of it, the demand for the more integral purchases had dropped. So satisfaction had dropped with the kind of depth of discount. So I personally kind of see that as the bulk purchasing has more come to the table here. And this deal-driven mentality of how do they get more for their regular kind of purchases.
It's interesting with retailers, and we see this, I think, in grocery, but now everybody has got some type of rewards program. So they have a lot of data, and they have a lot of data they can act on. But there always seemed to be an issue of speed to react to that data. So I guess there's a two-part question in this is why do traditional retailers struggle to turn those insights quickly? And are there now more tools at their disposal to use that data to make some quick turns heading into Q4?
100%. So I think the main part there is legacy systems. So retailers have so much data at their fingertips, but very rarely is it connected to give a single view. So they haven't got a comprehensive view of their customer purchasing patterns. They haven't got a comprehensive view of the demand patterns or their inventory. There's very much pockets and silos split across the business. So when that happens, each department is running as their own team, not as an overlaying retail business. So there's often a breakdown in kind of actions because they're waiting on a delay of data to be sent across, or there is a miscommunication of a go live. It happens day in, day out. to answer the question around the tools, absolutely there is. There's so much opportunity for a kind of overarching data platform to come in and give that unsiloed view. So give that single viewpoint of the businesses at any one point. Obviously, naturally, AI is there to play a part there as well. So it can actually give that, not only kind of show that data at a single layer, but also give you that forward thinking view. And I think that's the element where retailers are who come to the table who are going to win will win. So not only are they getting their data and they're getting a clear view of what's happening, but how does that data drive action? Data without action, in my opinion, is not really that useful. So it needs to drive that next step and understanding of how that data can impact forward thinking and forward performance.
And then kind of within that is the flexibility. So what can retailers do when using supply chain, using their merchandising plans to stay flexible enough to meet or accommodate what they're seeing as a shift in demand or a shift in consumer behavior?
So I think with the flexibility element within the retail, it's one of the most kind of sporadic changing environments you can get. And I think within it, there needs to be a tolerance built in already. So I'm sure a lot of retailers do this. But for instance, understanding the demand pattern shifts and being able to react to it. So just to connect it back slightly to the earlier point around data, if they can't have this single view, they don't have the ability to react. So having that breakdown of silos and that total view to then forward think and make off the back of it, it will allow for that flexibility. So in the context of Prime Day, if you see an item listed on Prime Day suddenly go for a stronger discount, you can see at a glance very quickly if your systems are connected. Okay, what is your product? What is your margin on that product? What is your sell-through rate on that product? Now, I think typically within that scenario, most retailers would then go to look to price match or comparatively kind of go deeper on the discount. But I think there's a lot to be said to actually holding strong on that margin. Yes, we accept that retailers are very price sensitive, but what we can't see from the Amazon point of view is we can't see their sell-through rate. We can't see how much stock they're sitting on. So it might be a case of actually they're using that as a demand lever to kind of discount heavily, bring in a customer and hope that they buy additional purchases off the back of it. If you then kind of go like for like on a single SKU and try and erode that margin further, there's no guarantee that that will in the long term create a higher lifetime value of the customers or a higher basket value. However, if that is a demand driving product, so a product that brings a customer in the first instance, it's important you maintain that stock of that product. So yes, it might be marginally higher comparatively to Amazon in this scenario, but if it's not there in the first place, you're automatically taken away from the table of that purchase.
Right. Interesting. And then we get into the discussion of automation and AI, which I don't think I have had a conversation in the last year that didn't include AI. So we're seeing more retailers use AI to really shorten the path from the signals they're getting from the market to decision and then ultimately action. Can you talk about what this looks like conceptually for a modern retailer to use these kind of tools to meet that need of a consumer that seems to be changing, more rapidly?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So from my point of view, we're in the space of inventory and pricing. That's our two key kind of pillars that we operate in within the UiPath space. Reason being, you need the product there to sell in the first place. It needs to be priced competitively, not just from a kind of lowest price point of view from a consumer, but also to make sure it's maintaining margin within that. Where the two work together is the sweet spot, in my opinion. So really understanding how demand affects pricing and pricing affects demand. And I think at the minute, there's quite a lot of point solutions within the AI space that tackle one problem, but don't give you the full kind of catalog within it. So what we're trying to see here is within the automation space, I've got quite a passionate angle within this. And I quite often come back to this point. Retail's an art. There is an art to retail. It's not something where I think automation should come in and tackle everything. And equally with AI, one of my biggest bugbears is when you see AI for creative projects. That's not where it should play. AI and automation, in my opinion, should take away the boring and the mundane actions within a retail space. So for instance, uploading a PO, nobody wants to spend their time doing that. There's an automation that can do that. Chasing a supplier, it's tedious, it's time consuming. There are more strategic decisions you should get your workforce working on and utilizing. So the minute you kind of almost tackle the boring aspects, if you will, that's when the automation and AI really comes into play, because they're tackling that day to day, they're tackling that kind of time sink, that mind sink for an end user, and allowing them to think of more strategic and actionable decisions, which will really affect the bottom line.
And those things you just mentioned, sort of more of the administrative work, that's you're getting back then a lot of time to maybe
100%.
focus on the more creative side of the business.
Exactly that. If we think about merchandisers, this is the space that we predominantly operate in. If you think about the number of individual SKUs or products that they have to manage in any one category, it's extensive. It's thousands upon thousands in some cases, especially if you're thinking about the likes of Walmart and Target. I tried to think what those numbers are in complete honesty. They can only tackle the biggest fire at any one problem, at any one time, sorry. And what we see often, it's either the products which are selling out very, very quickly, so your top 10%, so the ones that you need to make sure are on the shelves at any one time, or the bottom 10%. So those are the products which are sat on the shelves, they're not moving, they're just sat there, taking up space, tying up working capital, not adding anything. Where the efficiencies can be made here is that middle 80%. So the ones that don't necessarily need attention, but if you gave them a marginal nudge in the right direction, or if you gave them a slight bit more of exposure, they would start to make this marginal gains. So for me, it's not necessarily about chasing that big bang number of, we need to change your margin by 50%, increase it by 50%, as much as I would love to say I could do that. Actually, if you do a steady 1% increase across your product range, that can amount to millions upon millions. And that's where I think is important to focus.
Where does AI come in when retailers are looking at live data, looking at what their competitors are doing, that allows them to maybe quickly flag an opportunity or maybe recognize just something that's an anomaly that they just want to stay away from?
I think things around the product selling life cycles. So obviously products are often bought to sell within a certain window. And in the instances of things like the Prime events are often bought in for that window to know that they're selling out, or hopefully they're maintaining. I think AI using forward thinking forecasts and predictions to understand where they are at within that selling window is key. So are they performing exactly where we need to do? So again, to contextualize in the Amazon, they often go with a big discount first. So they'll go for like a very heavy discount on, say, for instance, a very well known product, let's say, I don't know, Shark Ninja. They'll go very heavy. They always put their face masks into the sale. I know because I purchased one. And they'll go on a heavy discount for it, which is great. It gets the attention, it gets the traffic in. But AI can predict the forward thinking demand there. So for instance, if say day one, you're at 50% of the sell through, is that what we envisioned for day one? Did we actually want it at 30% because we want it to continue to be a traffic driver? Or is it behind? Did we want it to actually virtually sell out straight away because we don't want to be known for a that margin, that discount? It was just a traffic driver. And I think you can only use that forward thinking prediction with AI because it needs to understand the historics. It needs to overlay a prediction off the back of it and give you an action to drive as well.
And with AI, how does it move a company past what I think has been historically backward looking reporting and allowing a retailer to be more proactive when you're talking about execution across inventory and pricing?
It gives an action. So in the instance of our tool, what we're able to do is we'll take all of the SKU lists by all locations. So you can imagine the amount of kind of combinations that there are there, thousands upon thousands, and it highlights the action to take. So if we bring it back to the scenario I gave earlier around kind of the merchandisers having the full SKU list, how do you know within that middle 80% which ones you should action? How do you know how they're performing at an individual SKU level at any one time? This is where AI is built to help. So if something's selling quicker than we forecasted or something's taking its less time, the tool has the ability to say, hey, Mr. Merchandiser, there's an action you need to take here. You either need to discount it a little bit to help with the sell-through rate, or you actually need to make sure you put your next order in because you're going to sell out quicker than you thought you did. And that kind of adding superhuman elements, if you will, so amplifying the action or highlighting the action is the best way to do that, in my opinion.
Catherine, I'm curious from when using AI, and I feel like the entire world's just learning how to use this new technology, or the technology that's not terribly new, but it's new enough. Mm-hmm. Is there a way, like, I mean, and I know like some of the things we do with AI, it's driven by a command. We ask it to do something and then it does something. But is there a way to set up an AI program, if you will, where you're getting alerts, where it's recognizing something in a system and then it can email you, it can text you, whatever it is, however it communicates.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think this is the new era of agentic AI, right? So we've had AI as I think most people use it. They default to ChatGPT, and it can write or polish a message for me. Great, amazing use case, brilliant. But in the context of retail, that doesn't take you very far. You need it to highlight where the issues are. So I almost have this always on, always watching system, which highlights the inefficiencies or highlights an action that it needs to take. Even something simple like a missing PO, it can add value, but it's really helping someone concentrate their time. So absolutely, you can get to that state. I think the critical point, though, which is often missed by retailers, and I think it's something that you'll have heard once or twice, the problem 2-3 years ago was, I know I need to use AI, but I don't know where, and I don't know where. I just been told by the powers that be that I should have AI in some instances. So I think it was very much a spray and pray mentality of, we'll add a bit of AI here, we'll add a little bit more here. But where we're seeing now, the problem with that is, and it was something that we uncovered in a recent survey that we did, a lot of retailers are still waiting for value off the back of it. There's often been pilots that have been launched that have either gone into the bin or they've just launched and not really actioned in the way that they should have done. And I think this is where a thought shift needs to happen. So I think initially, and a gap that most retailers I view are doing, they need to map out their processes end to end. I think people who work in retail quite often work in silos, similar to the data point we made earlier, and they're very good at understanding their individual processes and what they need to do to get from point A to point B. But how does that impact businesses outside of theirs? So, for instance, if the marketing team launch a promotion, how does that affect the inventory, and how does the inventory affect the pricing team? So it all needs to flow off the back of it. So in my opinion, I think one of the most invaluable thing a retailer can do is really map out their processes end to end and understand what's happening. And I mean on quite a granular level. So who's doing what process and what time is that taking? The minute you can start to see the repeatability and the minute you can start to see the time sinks, that's where the efficiencies can come in. So around automation. So to the earlier point, if a merchandiser is uploading a PO to a tool, it takes 5 minutes and then it waits for a download element. There's 5 minutes saved. And if that's just one merchandiser, timed it by your whole merchandising team, timed it by your working week, then times it by your working year, you've got a real tangible value metric there you can tackle on time. And I think leaning into that and almost taking that foundational step first of, let's map this out end to end and find the efficiencies using the things like automation, RPA, or then layering the AI on top, that's when the powerful offering really comes to play.
Right. Interesting. And if you could sit in a room with retail leadership teams today, what's the one piece of advice that you would give them to ensure that they are agile enough to win when we come to what you called the golden quarter?
Find out how long it takes your business to turn a signal into an action. So once you get that indicator, then what happens to the point of action, and map out those processes in between. And if you can find efficiencies within that, it gives you a unique competitive advantage to really dial that up and turn kind of signal into action, condense it down, and then I think you'll win.